Okay, let's try this again. This is my second attempt at the roughness part because I started and I was muted and I didn't realize. Good thing I checked. Okay, so what I did, let me just watch. I'll just walk you through what I did. I grabbed everything that was for base color and I moved it up to make room for our roughness. Then I renamed this guy 0. I clicked, the frame thing, and I call this one 0, so it goes plank mask 0, 1, etc. And then from this node, which is technically this, so even if you did this, it would be the same thing. But just to keep yourself organized, I pulled from here into a levels, and then I plugged this levels into another levels, and then from this second levels, I plugged that into the roughness as a placeholder. Now, just from the get-go here, we already have like rough planks and wet in between the planks, which is obviously not what we want, but it's a decent start. So with this level, we're going to have the ability to mess around with the planks themselves and the in-between. So here we are going to change some values. We're going to go into the values tab, and we're going to do 0, 1, 0.5, 1, and 0.6. So what we did here, if we go back to the histogram, let me undo that. If you move this and these like this, you're basically inverting the levels. So it's like an invert grayscale. Um, so when you move the bottom one here, you're raising the black values. So we're raising the roughness because white is super rough and black is glossy or you know reflective or wet. So we're gonna increase the in between because we want it to be super rough because it's the crevices. So we want it to be all the way up, and then we want this one is going to dictate the top. So like I said, we landed on 1 for the level out low and zero point 0.6 for the level out high. So this gives us a good solid start where the in between is rough and the planks themselves are uh, less rough than the crevices. So that's like our starting base. Now from here, we're going to do another blend. And similar workflow to our last tutorial, we're going to do a uniform grayscale, and we're going to go all the way up to 1. I'm going to plug that into the top. Alright, look at that. It's rough, like wood. We're done. Not quite. Now, we're just going to add a generic standalone noise on top of our wood so that it's not just like even. And this is going to be separate from anything that we did here. So right here, we're going to do a directional noise 1. Well, directional noise 1. Boom. Now from this, we're going to plug it into a blur. So I'm just going to turn it off for now. Into a vector warp grayscale. We're already pretty familiar with this. So we're just going to pull from here. Then we are going to plug that into a levels as usual because we want to have control over how strong it is. And there are several ways to do this, but this is the way I prefer because it gives me the most control. And it was highly recommended by a better artist than myself. Okay, so we're going to change this to 5 as usual. And now let's see what's happening. So if we go back to our main blend, so this is before, and then this is after. So you can see here in the 3D port what it's doing. Now it's a little drastic, it's a little ugly, so we're going to play around with it. We are going to, first of all, we want to change the scale. Because right now it's like, we want to break it up, make it a little smaller. So it's not so, so the noise pattern isn't so large. So we're going to go with 4. This way, you know, we get more variety on all of them. So it's more broken up. Then from here, we're going to blur it 2.5. And again, as you're following along, guys, girls, play around with the sliders. You don't have to copy exactly what I do. Use it as like the end point, but then just play around with the sliders. You can land in something you might like more or something that's more in the direction that you're looking for. So here we're adding 2.5. Actually, I'm going to make it 2. And change your quality to 1. And then in the levels, we are going to lower the level out high. So this guy, and we're going to do 0.15, but I'm just going to show you guys what happens when you slide down. So I want it to be subtle. So this is before, and I'm just trying to add a little bit of subtle roughness. So we're going to do 0.2. And again, maybe you want it to be super in your face, and maybe you don't want this blur. Maybe you want it to look more grainy. You know, go for it. It's the only way you'll learn. And you'll get better results by just trying different things. Alright, let's move this out. Now this guy is standalone, so this guy technically is going between the 1 and the 2. Alright. So, we're going to do another blend. And we are going to pull from number 2. And this is going to go into the bottom. We're going to copy this guy and put this on top. Oh, one major thing I forgot. Let's hide this for now. And actually, I changed this from copy to subtract. There we go. So I was like, that looks a little too subtle. I don't think I would have done that, but yeah. So now if you go back to your levels again and you play around with the, what's it called again? Level out high. We are subtracting roughness. So when we're subtracting roughness, we're actually making things glossier. So if you subtract the full value, it looks like you got some wet wood. Somebody spilled something on the wood. So I don't want it to be that strong. I want to add some variation, some very subtle variation. And I just undid back to 0.2. Maybe you're like, maybe you think that's too much. Maybe we'll go with 0.15. You know, I want it to be subtle. So before, after, before, after. And you can see the changes here. All right, back to this guy. So here, we're going to go back to copy. And we need to do a invert grayscale. But actually, we're just going to do it in the levels because the levels also has a invert option here. The only thing I say be careful with is if you invert and then you come back here, you may not realize that you inverted this because you might just forget because all it does, like I said, is flip these two and that's inverting. So sometimes I like to just do an invert so that I remind myself, hey, you did an invert. But maybe you're smarter than me and you don't need that reminder. Okay. So yeah, so we're going to invert from number 2 here. And then in the levels, we're just going to have it there just because we want to make some changes to the levels. Actually, I think I do. I think I did here. What did I do? 0.425. So what I'm doing here is I'm bringing out this detail, this edge wear detail. And maybe you want to you can see what's happening right here. Maybe you want it to look like this. Maybe you want it to be very, very contrast heavy. So we're going to do 0.425. Actually, let's go a little bit more. Let's deviate. Let's make it kind of dramatic. Let's go with like 0.375 maybe. Yeah, I like the contrast right here. You see how it's like reflective here, but then it kind of rougher. I like that contrast a lot there. Okay, and we're doing copy. So now we're getting more interesting wood planks here. So before, after. Very nice. Now after this one, we're gonna move on to 3. So we're gonna pull here, move our blend, line them up with the 3, and then here we're gonna pull from this node, not this one, because we already talked about this before. This has been altered to kind of match this need, but we have a different need for this guy. So we're gonna pull from here again into our levels. It's okay if you don't move anything in the slider. At least it's there if you want to do anything to it. And then we're gonna grab this, put that there, boom, boom, boom. And let me just make sure that this is also copy. Yep. And this one's also copy. Very nice. Um, and then what's happening here is now we're adding, these large strokes that we made earlier, like this guy right here, because this is deeper than the rest of the wood. We want to have a little bit of contrast there with our roughness. So for this one, we'll do 0.75 on the levels here. We don't want it to be too different because it's not that deep, right? It's only a little bit. So we're with 0.75. So before, after. And it's, breaking up the roughness level on the top of the planks there. So we're just gonna move this along. We're gonna move on to number 4 here. I'm gonna grab these guys. Actually, I can grab all. We'll just grab these guys. Copy and paste. We're gonna unplug the bottom here. This goes in the middle, and then this continues the connection. And we're gonna move it over 4 here. And then, as you guys already know, we're gonna pull from the range. We're not gonna pull from the blur. Gonna pull from here into A levels. Let's just see what it does before we start sliding anything. So if we look at it from an angle, so it's making pretty much everything rougher, but we want to isolate. We don't want to use this entire range, right? Because it's going to affect all of it. So we're going to go over here and we're going to mess around with our values. And for the level in, we're going to do 0.25. And we're basically doing a histogram scan where we're just trying to like narrow the range. We're going to do 0.7 here. So we're increasing the whites there. We're gonna lower the intensity. So again, if you're having a hard time grasping your head around like what do these things do? What's level in low, high, mid, whatever. Feel free to go through, do a scan, and then do a levels. There's no shame in that. I also sometimes get confused and I can't figure out what I'm trying to do with the levels, even though I know what the levels does, and I'll just use a scan, even though the level does as well. So it's all about getting the desired look that you want. Okay, so before, after. So again, it's just about breaking up the roughness as we go. The more variety or variation, the better. Now we're going to move along, and now we're moving on to 5, which is the one just before all the different elevation changes. So we're right on track. Again, we're just going to do a blend. We're going to grab this top guy, we're going to paste them over here, plug him into the top. Then for this guy, we are going to grab from the scan to all levels again, plug that into the bottom, and then you can see, these are the ones from here. So now obviously this is way too strong. we want to lower it. So we're gonna do 0, 1, 0.5, 0.3. Actually, I'm looking at the wrong one. Whoops. Right, it's this one. Sorry about that. So we want to do 0, 1, 0.5, and then 0.1. Just the last one to level out high. So we're basically just moving this guy down here. Because this is way too rough, right? It's way too strong. We just want to lower it to kind of make it subtle. So we went with 0.1. Actually, I'm going to go with 0.2. I think I like that more. Okay. Now, this is going to be a little bit harder to grasp because we're going to be a little bit more in control here. So again, same thing, blend, uniform white, plug that into the top, plug that in here, boom, bang. Now for this one, we are going to be grabbing the gradient, the slope that we have here. So we're gonna pull from that into a levels, and then this is an extra step here. From the levels, we're gonna go into another blend, and then we're gonna change this blend. We're not gonna change it yet. We need to follow basically what we did here in number 6, because if we remember, we used a mask to break up, to have two sets of sloping planks. We have the first one was just kind of like applying a very subtle slope to all our planks, and then in the next one we isolated a couple of them and we made them a little bit more exaggerated. So we need to make sure we're keeping that in track here. So we need to plug in our mask on 6 here. This guy, if we hold, what's the button here? If we hold control and click and drag, we can duplicate that link. And then we're going to put it on the top here. And then we are going to change this blend mode. Oops. Undo that. I was hitting undo on the wrong computer. Okay. And we're going to change this to multiply. Because we want to mask out this black at anything times 0 equals 0. And then we want to apply this just to these guys. Oops. Like that. Now, you can see here that it's really strong. So we're going to go back to this level and we're going to lower it. What do we lower it to? We do 0, 1, oops, 0, 1 point, and then we do 0.3, and then we do 0 here. So before, after. So you can see here that wherever it's sloping down, that is the rougher. And then we're going to do one more here, because we have the exaggerated one right here, so I'm going to show it with that one. It's the same thing. Boom, boom. Plug that in there. Do copy for that one. Both of these are copy. And then same thing, we're going to grab these two guys, copy paste over here, plug that into the bottom, but we need to change this. We need to invert it. So just like we inverted here, we need to pull from this invert. Or you can do another invert up here, but we're just going to pull from this one to stay resourceful and plug that into the top. So here, we multiplied by this, but for this one we need the inverse. So we're doing the inverse of that. Then we get that, and then we get this. So then you can see here that this plank, which is sloping down, you would assume that the dust would accumulate more here because it's further down. So you can see here that it's getting rougher as it goes down. Now we can exaggerate it if we wanted, like this, so you can see here. But I want it to be subtle. Unless your material looked like this, then it probably would be subtle. But this is way too much. Ah, crap. Now I forgot what this was set to. I think it was 3. Or maybe 2.5 if we wanted. Yeah, we can go with 3. Make it a little bit exaggerated. Make it pop. Okay. Alright. So after that, we need to do our height variation. So we want the planks that are lower are going to be rougher, rougher than the ones near the top. So this one's a little more simple because we didn't use any masks for this one. We are just going to pull from, from this guy, I believe. Yep, this guy. Now, I do think we need to invert. I'll explain why. Then it levels. And plug that into the bottom. Now, the reason why we're inverting is because in height, black is 0, so it's lower, and white is higher, it's 1. So when we did the height, black was actually being sunk down. But in roughness, black means it's glossy. And if we want to make the ones that are lower down rougher, then we need to invert this. Yeah, so this is actually really high up. And this one right here is really low. This is a lower plank than the rest. So we want this to be rougher. But like I said, we want it to be white. So we invert it. We invert it here with the invert grayscale. Now that goes in here, and then let's play around with our levels again. Let's see what is happening. We need to lower it, lower the effect a little bit. Actually, let me try something. Alright. Forget everything I said in the last minute and a half. While what I said is technically true, it doesn't apply here because this is a mask. And this is really what's driving the roughness information. This is just telling it where it's going to go. So for this level, we're just gonna change the values to 0. And then for the level out low, we're gonna do 0.125. And let's see what the difference is here. It's gonna be very subtle. Let me try something here. Trying to see which ones are getting rougher and which ones are not. Okay, so yeah, I think we do want to invert it. I am a genius. Okay, yeah, you can do the inverted grayscale, or you can just hit this thing. So let's see. Okay, yeah, I think this one is, yeah, the ones that are lower are getting rougher. Um, Maybe I'm wrong, but it looks good. It's really subtle, so it doesn't make that much of a difference. I don't want to take up too much time trying to, there's some things that once you get more advanced, you just understand. That's the more you understand, the harder it is to explain. All right, we're almost done here with the roughness. Let us move this out. Now we're going at a blend boy. Now we got to the end here. That was number 8 we used. Well, not really number 8, but the stuff that went into number 8 we used here. So let's organize this a little bit. Let's move these back. This belongs to this one, this belongs to that, etc. This one belongs to 6. Now here, we need to do this stuff here that is not in the height. Like our dust and our edge highlight. So the first thing is the edge highlight. So we're going to grab our edge highlight from after the blur. Not this, because this is how we change the intensity of the highlight. But here, we're going to put this into the bottom. And again, we can do our levels. Then we're going to copy paste this guy. Now here, we are going to change our mode to add, because we want to, let me bring out the paint here. Time for some paint tool, just to explain what's happening. Okay. If we have, let's say this is the base, this is 0, absolute 0, boom. And let's say we have something like over here, and let's call this one 0.4. Now, let's say we add to this 0.4, and let's say we add 0.2. So plus 0.2. If this is 4, then this becomes 0.6. And it would be, I don't know, try to make it somewhat to scale. It would be like around here. 0.6. Now, if you try to add 0.5 to 0.6, you're going to get 0.11. Now, you're already past 1 or 10, which is technically 1. So you can't go past this point because it only goes from 0 to 1. You can't get any more whiter than white. So here, what we're doing with add is we're adding whatever this value is on top of whatever value is below. What copy does, if we go back to copy, what copy is doing is basically it's just putting it on top. So if we go back over here real quick, what copy is doing is if we have, let's say, this one, and let's say this is 0.4 again, and then we want to put something on top, and it's, let's say, 0.2, and it's on copy, then 0.2 is going to override, let's say 0.2 is this much, and 0.4 is this much. If we do copy, then it's going to override this and bring it down to, because this is technically 0.2 right here, 0.2 and 0.4. So it's going to sync it. It's not subtracting, it's just putting it on top, which is similar, but only because this is lower. If this was 0.5, then it would raise it. But technically it's not adding, it's just slapping it on top. Now it's slapping it on top based on the mask. So keep that in mind. So this is what it looks like with copy, but with add, we're supplementing whatever is below it, and we're adding whatever's below it. So if we get real close, and I hide this and unhide it, this is our edge highlight. So I want to roughen it a little bit. Not this much, so I'm going to lower the levels a little bit. And we are going to do 0.15. I want it to be subtle. I don't want it to be super noticeable. Actually, let's do 0.2. So if we hide, you can see here the difference it's doing here. Now we're going to do another blend, and then this is going to be our dust. So we're going to pull from this, because here we did some subtracting, so we want the latest. So we're going to pull from here into a levels again, keeping the same workflow, putting it in here. And then for this one, we're going to add again. Put this over here, like that. Let's change it to add. Now you can see what's happening. Now obviously it's a little too drastic, so again we're just going to lower the level out high. We're going to do 0.25. Let's have some nice contrast in our roughness. So you can mostly see it here. And this is because the dust is settling here because of the slope. So we want to reflect that. And obviously there's some dust sitting here. Alright, very nice, very nice. Move over. And then we have one more thing, I believe. And that is... Actually, no, because we skipped this other bit here. So that's pretty much it for the roughness. Now, I might edit this and put this into a bonus section, but this is the end of roughness. So if we go to sphere 2 tiles, we can see our new material. Hold shift and control and then hold that and then hold right click and then drag, and you can move your light around, which is very useful when you're trying to, you know, get different angles here for your wood. Now, this is just a bonus here. I might make it a separate video, but if you don't want this broken bits, we can just go over here. Actually, I'm going to end the video here so that it makes it easier for my editing, and then I know where to pick up. So I hope you guys enjoyed this second tutorial. If there's any way I can improve, please let me know in the comments. And if you would like the source file, I will post my email somewhere so I can mail it to you. Because it is going to be a little bit different than what I did up here and what you see in the preview at the start. Because I'm trying to copy, but it's not always one-to-one. And I make some changes as we go as well. Okay, I'm going to stop here and we're going to go to the bonus part.